master transitions using AI, and by the end of this video, you're gonna know exactly how I created this transition. This transition can be used basically with any type of footage. I'll be using Krill's latest music video for my example. Now let me show you how I did this transition in After Effecks. The reason why I chose this spot in the music video is because it was motivated by a little tilt up at the end of the clip, and I thought this would work great to sell the transition. First, we're gonna find a frame that shows the background the most. So once you find your frame, you wanna press Ctrl-Alt-S. This will create a render queue of your frame. What this does is basically in After Effects just take a screenshot. When you press render, it exports it as a PSD, which is perfect for us because that's where we're going to be using AI generate fill. So once you press render, open up your PSD file. Now that you have your frame open in Photoshop, selecting my frame, I Ctrl-T, scaled it down, choose the select tool of your choice, and then selected what I wanted to extend. So once you've made your selection, you'll see a button hover underneath your selection saying generate. Press that. You can add a prompt if you want, but because we're just trying to remove it, we don't need to add a prompt. Once we've generated with something that we liked, I went through and created backup just in case you mess something up. After creating and hiding my backup, I selected my generated layer and my image. Pressing Ctrl-Shift-E combines those into one. Now I'm just going to repeat over. So I'm trying to make my building tall because I'm swiping up in my transition is trying to make the building as high as possible. So I'm just going to repeat the steps over and over again until I get something that I'm happy with. As you can see, the image starts to fall apart. The AI just starts to lose track a little bit. That is fine for this transition because we're actually going to be swiping past so fast that you won't be able to see the details. Now that I'm happy with what I go to image, canvas size. Now the canvas size doesn't have to be anything specific. Just got to fill in all these empty areas. So I just kept my canvas 4K and flipped it vertical, and then filled in all the empty space. And now just export your AI generated image and then bring it into After Effects. And once you have it loaded into After Effects, what we're going to do is try to make it match the background as much as possible. So because our artist doesn't intersect with the background much, we're just going to shape a mask around our subject, invert it. So you want to find the start of your frame and then line up your image with the background. Because it's the same frame, it should just match up perfectly with your background, but the only difference is now we have so much more real estate to work with above the clip. So now that everything's lined up, I'm going to go to my clip and create a pre-comp. You want to select move all attributes into a new composition. Make sure you select adjust composition duration and then select OK. If you want to navigate through your compositions just a little bit faster, just press tab. Now that we have our clip inside our comp, go up to effect, search curve, drag it onto our clip. So now we want to adjust our clip so that it has an extremely high contrast so that After Effects tracker doesn't have such a hard time on tracking certain details. Now that I've done that, I'm going to back out to my main comp. I'm going to hide my background extension. Now we're going to go to our tracker. If you go to the right side of your screen, you should be able to see a drop down tab that says tracker. We're going to go into that and you're going to see 4 different options. We want to track our motion and it's going to add this point. So you're just going to select the inside square, hold shift, and I'm just going to extend it out just so it's easier to find the tracking point that we're looking for. I'm going to track the corner of this statue on the wall. Now that we found our point, we're going to scale down our middle square so it's just big enough to fit what we're trying to track, and then the outside square is going to be bigger than that. If your footage has a lot more movement or camera shake, you want to make this outside box a lot bigger. So under our tracking tab, we have position, rotation, and scale. I tracked only using position, so I'm just going to track forwards and see how this turns out. And as you can see, it's a really good track. Now I'm going to add a null object, rename it to background track. Now we go back to our tracker. You want to select edit target and you want to select the null object. In this example, our background track. Now we're going to press apply and we make sure we have X and Y selected. Press OK. And now our null object is parented to our track. So I'm going to go back into my footage composition, turn off the curve so that we can see our footage correctly, turn our background back on. You want to go to your background plate, go over to parent and link, press none, and then select your background track. So now that we've done that, we can see that it's a bit off. So what I'm going to do is go turn on my curves again, go back into my tracker, make sure we have our footage selected. Now we want to turn on our rotation and scale. This is going to give us another tracking point. And we're just going to basically do the same thing we did before, but just with 2 trackers.
Are you serious?
Apply it again to your null object. Now after changing our track, you can see that our background is upside down, which is incorrect. So what we're going to do is we're going to unlink our footage from our null. You're going to select your background, press P, hold shift, and then press S and R. All I did was just right click on each of my values and reset them. The only problem is now I got to realign it. Stupid. So now that my background is realigned, I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. On my first frame, I'm going to link my background track to my background. It works almost perfectly, but we can see that it moves out of line just a little bit. So what I did to fix this is just set scale and positioning keyframes, move to the end of my clip, and then just adjust it again. Now you can see our footage is basically matching up perfectly with our background. So I'm going to go back into my footage composition, turn off my curves, and as you can see, basically perfect. Now that our background plate is tracked to our background, we want to add a 3D camera. You want to make your background plate and your footage 3D as well, so that when we move our camera, our 2D footage reacts as if it was in 3D space. So now we're going to go into our camera transform settings and we're going to keyframe point of interest, position, and orientation. Then we move our playhead to where we want the transition to happen. So where you can see your footage, down in the bottom right, you should be able to see one view. If you click that and go 2 views, this will add a second view showing our 3D camera. So as you can see, if I move my 3D camera, our footage reacts how it should react if it was in 3D space. So I'm just going to extend out my footage. Now next to where it says 2 views, you're going to select where it says top, and now you can see all your different orientations. So if we select the front, we can see our footage from the front angle. So now that I'm in the front view, I'm going to drag my camera all the way up past my background plate. I'm personally going to add a little bit of rotation, and this is what it's looking like. So I want my camera to move forward close to the building as it goes up. So I'm just going to go to front, select left, and now I can see a side-on view. Drag it forwards a little bit to give that illusion that it's getting closer to the building. So now you want to select all your keyframes and press F9. What this does is eases in and out of your keyframes. Now that we've done that, with your keyframe selected, you want to go over to this little graph icon. I want my transition to start slow and get faster. So I'm going to make a shape like this. Now that you've done that, it's just tweaking until you're happy with what you got.
That was easy.
I'm just going to select my camera, my background plate, my footage, and my null, and I'm going to create a composition. So what this allows me to do is I can now add just subtle zoom just to make it a little bit more smoother. I'm going to do the start of my clip, add a keyframe on scale, go to the end, and I'm just going to zoom in just a little bit, just adding the soft zoom just to blend it in a little bit more. So this is one plugin that every VFX artist use, and it's called RSMB. What this does, it adds artificial motion blur, and that just adds an extra layer of smoothness to your clips, creating this really nice motion blur effect. Then I added some shakes from my Ultimate Shakes pack, and that's it. You now know how to use AI to level up your transitions in After Effects.